Welcome back to WION World is One. You're watching Speed News with me, Vidur Kathuria. Let's get started. US President Donald Trump announced that efforts to stop Venezuelan drug trafficking by land will begin very soon, claiming they've already halted 85% of sea trafficking. Trump warned drug traffickers to stop sending poison to the US, stating that stopping them by land will be easier. According to reports by the US, Venezuela has carried out at least 21 US has carried out 21 strikes on alleged drug ports in the Caribbean and Pacific since September, killing at least 83 people. US President Donald Trump has announced that one of the two National Guard troops shot near the White House has died. He described 20-year-old Specialist Sarah Beckstrom as a highly respected, young, magnificent person. The second soldier, 24-year-old Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, remains in critical condition. The two Guard members were shot on Wednesday afternoon while on patrol in an attack officials are calling brazen, targeted, and an act of terror. Palestinian-American teenager Mohammed Zahid Ibrahim was reunited with his family at a Ramallah hospital following his release after nearly 10 months of detention in Ofer prison. He had been arrested on February 16th on charges of allegedly throwing stones at Israeli settlers. According to his father, the US government put pressure on Israel and the American people stood with Mohammed because he was a child. During Ibrahim's arrest, 27 US congressmen signed a letter demanding his immediate release. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei has stated that the Trump administration is not worthy of contact or cooperation with the Islamic Republic. He made this comment during a televised speech dismissing rumors of Iran sending messages to Washington as pure lies. Khamenei's remarks come amid heightened tensions between the US and Iran, particularly after the US and Israel launched strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities in June. Russian President Vladimir Putin has stated that Russia will halt its Ukraine offensive if Kyiv withdraws from the territories Moscow claims. However, if Ukraine doesn't comply, Putin warned that Russian forces will seize the areas by force. Russia controls around 1/5 of Ukraine's territory. The issue of occupied land, which Kyiv has said will never cede, is among the biggest stumbling blocks in the peace process. Another important issue is the talks are Western security guarantees for Ukraine, which Kyiv says are needed to prevent Moscow from invading again in the future. Russia has accused Japan of acting on US orders and warned it would respond harshly to plans to deploy missiles on Yonaguni Island, located off Taiwan's coast. Japan's Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi stated that the deployment plans are moving forward to counter aircraft or missiles targeting Japan. Russia views this move as part of a broader militarization effort and a threat to its security. Dominican authorities publicly burned over 1,600 kilograms of seized drugs, mostly cocaine, at a military facility in Pedro brand. The destruction comes after major seizures, including a haul in Pedernales, was overseen by the National Institute of Forensic Science. The head of the National Control Drug Directorate linked the effort to strengthen international cooperation, highlighted by the recent visit of US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. The destruction adds to the significant 28,452 kilograms already destroyed in 2025, a figure equivalent to 64% of the total drugs seized in 2024. Israeli forces shot and killed 2 Palestinian men in the West Bank city of Jenin after they appeared to surrender. In a footage, the men were seen exiting a building surrounded by armed Israeli forces in Jenin, lifting their shirts and lying on the ground in an apparent surrender. The forces then appeared to direct the men back inside the building before opening fire at close range. IDF has said that it is reviewing the incident as the killings have sparked outrage. Pope Leo, on his first trip outside Italy, has expressed concern over the rising global conflicts, warning that the world is experiencing a heightened level of conflict fueled by economic and military power struggles. During his visit to Turkey, he met with President Erdogan and emphasized the need to prioritize justice and peace. The Pope's trip marks the 1700th anniversary of the Nicene Creed and is seen as a significant moment in his overseas journey.
We must in no way give in to this. Future of
A court in Peru sentenced former President Pedro Castillo to 11 years, 5 months and 15 days in prison for seeking to dissolve Congress. The decision came nearly 3 years after Castillo sought to disband the legislature on December 7, 2022, as he faced a third set of impeachment hearings. The sentencing has sparked protests outside Barbadillo prison, with some demanding justice for Castillo, while others supporting the court's decision. French police controller Lucas Philippe has been presented as Interpol's new president after being elected at the organization's 93rd General Assembly in Morocco. The 53-year-old becomes the third French national to hold the position and succeeds Emirati Ahmed Nasser al-Raisi, who is plagued by several judicial complaints in Europe accusing him of torture. Philippe says he aims to make Interpol a global hub for crime analysis and to place humans at the heart of the global system, combating organized crime and terrorism. Philippe's election marks the return of European leadership to Interpol after 24 years. Guinea-Bissau's military installed Major General Horta Inta as transitional president on Thursday, a day after soldiers toppled the civilian leadership in a swift power grab made before the results of a weekend election could be announced. The president, who was ousted in the coup, Umaro Sissoko Embalo, arrived in Senegal aboard a special flight following an intervention by the West African regional bloc. Senegal's foreign ministry said in a statement it was the 9th coup in West and Central Africa in 5 years and continued a pattern of instability in Guinea-Bissau, a notorious cocaine transport hub with a long history of military interventions in politics. Imran Khan's son Qasim has sounded the alarm over his father's safety, claiming that for the past 6 weeks he is being held in solitary confinement in a death cell with zero transparency. He said he and his brother have had no contact with him either, adding that the absolute blackout was not a security protocol. Imran's sister Noreen Niaza slammed the West for their silence on Imran Khan. She accused them of backing the Sharif government to suit their interests. Meanwhile, the United Nations has called on Pakistani authorities to ensure that the rights of imprisoned former Prime Minister Imran Khan are respected and fully upheld. This as anxiety mounts in Pakistan among his supporters over his health and conditions in detention. Imran Khan's party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI supporters, Minister Sohail Afridi held a protest outside the jail after they were denied permission to meet Imran Khan. Thousands of New Yorkers lined Manhattan streets to watch the 99th Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. a holiday tradition featuring giant balloons, elaborate floats, and performances from popular artists. Beloved characters including Dora the Explorer, SpongeBob SquarePants, and Spider-Man drifted above the crowds, while newer floats like Gabby's Dollhouse drew cheers from spectators. Performers Audrey Tuna and Ray Army, the singing voices behind the movie K-pop Demon Hunters, took the spotlight with a rendition of Golden. The parade concluded with the arrival of Santa Claus, signaling the unofficial start of Christmas festivities. A 6.0 magnitude earthquake struck the Anchorage metropolitan area in Alaska at 8:11 a.m. local time. The quake was centered near Susitna, approximately 67 miles northwest of the city, at a 69-kilometer focal point. Fortunately, officials report no immediate signs of major damage, and the U.S. tsunami warning system confirmed that a dangerous wave is not expected. This was the largest earthquake to hit South Central Alaska since 2021, underscoring the state's position as the most seismically active region in the nation. At least 94 people have died in the Hong Kong high-rise fire that tore through the massive Wang Fuk Court housing complex in Tai Po. Satellite images show the staggering before and after devastation across the 8-building estate. The satellite photos revealed entire facades stripped away and blackened halls spanning multiple towers. It is Hong Kong's deadliest fire since 1948, when an explosion followed by a fire killed 135 people. Authorities have begun investigating what sparked the blaze. EU member states and the European Parliament have agreed on new rules to force banks and payment service providers to better protect customers from online fraud, hidden fee and data leaks. The Parliament said that the rules would make providers liable for covering customer losses if they fail to implement effective fraud prevention. They will also be required to freeze suspicious transactions. Online platforms that fail to remove fraudulent adverts will be liable for the cost banks incur when reimbursing customers. The rules must still be formally adopted by the Parliament and Member States before coming into force. Taiwan prosecutors said that investigators have raided the homes of a former senior Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company or TSMC executive after the company accused him of leaking trade secrets. Computers, USB drives and other items were seized from two of Wei Jianluo's residences under a court-issued search warrant. TSMC, the world's largest contract chip maker and a key supplier to NVIDIA, said that this week it has filed a lawsuit with Taiwan's Intellectual Property and Commercial Court against Luo, its former senior vice president. Prosecutors said Luo is suspected of violating Taiwan's National Security Act. A court has also approved the seizure of his shares and real estate. European nations have agreed to boost space spending by about 30% to $25.6 billion over the next 3 years. The move is aimed at helping Europe catch up with the US, China, and rapidly advancing private space firms. The European Space Agency had requested its 23 nations for around $25.7 billion to fund launches, satellites, and research programs for 2026 to 2028, up from $19.6 billion for 2023 to 2025. The agreement underscores the growing importance of space both as a fast-expanding economic sector and for security and defense. Europe's push is also driven by a desire for greater strategic autonomy from the US. Asian markets moved in small ranges on Friday as global stock stocks struggled for direction after the US Thanksgiving break on Wall Street. Still, investors were cheering signals of Federal Reserve rate cuts. A gauge of global stocks is on track for its best week since June. The Chinese market will be under scrutiny following a recommendation of overweight by JP Morgan Chase. That indicates a possibility of substantial gains next year. Bets show an 80% chance of a 0.25% Fed cut next month and leaning towards 3 more by the end of 2026. Investors have been bolstered by those bets, which led to a rally in stocks this week. That trend erased nearly all of the AI-driven losses in global stocks this month. Investors in Chinese EV companies were anticipating a fresh breath of positivity from a robust results season. On the contrary, disappointing results have stoked anxiety about what lies ahead. An increase in global risk appetite and a more positive view for Chinese stocks propelled the new sector to new heights. EV maker XPeng's year-to-date returns surpassed 130% earlier this month. However, concerns regarding the industry's profitability have pressured even well-established firms like BYD following its fast expansion, with domestic demand anticipated to decline as government policy support dwindles. All eyes are now on how Chinese EV makers fare next year, with costs expected to rise and consumer discounts likely to persist. Earnings could take a further hit. The European Commission's Economic Sentiment Indicator edged up slightly in November, marking the third consecutive monthly increase. Selling price expectations rose across all sectors. That signals that additional rate cuts are not needed. In November, the Economic Sentiment Indicator climbed to 97 from 96.8 in October. However, industrial confidence dipped, mainly due to dwindling orders, especially from exports. Factors like higher US tariffs and a strong euro are making export growth less predictable. Meanwhile, the services sector saw its highest confidence in over a year, with retail and construction confidence also on the rise. But inflation data still shows some stickiness. What looks certain is that the Eurozone's economy remains on a growth track, albeit a subdued one.